psychopathic, darkly humorous, eccentric, gangster-like, schizophrenic, and idolized. These traits have marked the evolution of a character who, once a cartoonish, sadistic antihero, has now transformed into a more relatable, troubled, and tragic protagonist. Just as literature and art evolve myths and characters across time and cultures, cinema follows this trajectory, often reinterpreting and reinventing stories and figures. The Joker's character in cinema has undergone numerous transformations, each interpretation offering distinct perspectives on how we perceive and understand this figure. Originally introduced in comics as a sadistic criminal mastermind, the Joker's film adaptations have reflected different interpretations, each portraying the character in unique ways depending on cultural and artistic shifts.
Good day, good day. Once more we interrupt your regularly scheduled program. This is the Joker speaking from his secret hideout.
Early portrayals, like Cesar Romero's in the 1960s Batman series, leaned into the character's cartoonish and campy elements, reflecting a more whimsical tone.
Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds. Lawrence?
However, Jack Nicholson's iconic performance in Tim Burton's Batman introduced a gangster-inspired, darkly comedic yet still theatrical Joker, cementing his place as a dangerous yet entertaining villain. The transformation of the Joker from an ordinary money-driven gangster into a psychopathic villain caused by an accident involving Batman serves as a crucial turning point that cements their roles as antagonists. This disfigurement which Batman inadvertently causes not only physically marks the Joker, but also deepens the divide between the two characters.
And all of Gotham is wondering what to make of Batman, friend or foe.
I have given a name to my pain, and it is Batman.
And disappear at will.
The Joker transcends his previous role as a mere mob leader, emerging as a chaotic agent of evil, representing a huge contrast to Batman's vigilante justice. Together, they embody the clear distinction between good and evil, their actions in Gotham serving as symbols of these opposing forces.
Mr. Dent, what do you think of the theory that the mysterious Batman is a mob enforcer killing these people?
I don't have any comment now.
Set against the backdrop of Gotham's criminal underworld, the film explores the deteriorating moral landscape, where the Joker thrives on disorder. The character's nature, Batman as a protector of order and the Joker as an agent of chaos, remains traditionally aligned with the universal battle between good and evil, reinforcing the archetypal struggle within the decaying, crime-infested city.
What do you believe in?
I believe whatever doesn't kill you simply makes you stranger.
In Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight, the traditional dichotomy between good and evil is deeply questioned, starting with the title itself, The Dark Knight, which hints at a morally ambiguous hero. Nolan's portrayal of the Joker, a purely sadistic psychopath, transcends the character's comic book origins.
Introduce a little anarchy. Upset the established order, and everything becomes chaos.
He becomes not just a criminal mastermind, but a personification of chaos, driven by nihilism and anarchy, with no clear motivations beyond destruction. This characterization reflects post-9/11 anxieties, where terrorism and disorder seem to dominate global concerns.
Well, you look nervous. Is it the scars? You want to know how I got them?
Unlike previous iterations, Nolan's Joker remains enigmatic, with no backstory provided to explain his descent into madness. His recounting of the mutilation stories about how he got his scars only adds to the confusion and mythic nature of his character. This vagueness helps elevate the Joker into a nearly superhuman antagonist, whose brilliance in planning and reckless disregard for his own well-being sets him apart from ordinary criminals.
I'm only burning my half. All you care about is money. This town deserves a better class of criminal. And I'm gonna give it to them.
The distinction between the Joker and the common gangsters in The Dark Knight is not merely about good versus evil. The Joker represents chaos as an inevitable force within a society that is unraveling from the inside. This reflection of chaos is further emphasized by the psychological and sociological depths of the film. Joker's actions aim to reveal the darkness inherent in every person, as seen in the moral transformation of Harvey Dent, from Gotham's White Knight to its tragic villain, Two-Face.
You thought we could be decent men in an indecent time! You were wrong.
Nolan's exploration of Gotham portrays it not as a city divided between criminals and agents of order, but as a morally decayed society, where even those who should represent good, like law enforcement and officials, are corrupted by self-interest. The famous social experiment with the two fairies, where citizens are forced to decide whether to destroy one another, underscores the Joker's philosophy. Evil and chaos are not external forces, but intrinsic elements of human nature.
See, their morals, their code. It's a bad joke. Dropped at the first sign of trouble. They're only as good as the world allows them to be. I'll show you.
Batman's character in The Dark Knight experiences significant transformations as well, that challenge his legitimacy and the moral implications of his actions. Throughout the film, the similarities between Batman and the Joker are highlighted, not just through their extraordinary abilities, but also through their status as outcasts. Both characters operate outside the boundaries of the law to pursue their objectives, raising questions about justice and morality.
Beautiful, isn't it?
Beautiful, unethical, dangerous.
Batman, as a masked and anonymous protector of Gotham City, escapes the consequences of his actions due to his secret identity. The anonymity allows him to become a morally ambiguous figure, making decisions that blur the lines between good and evil. In an effort to maintain the illusion of moral clarity for the citizens of Gotham, Batman takes the fall for the actions of Harvey Dent, thus sacrificing his own reputation to uphold the symbolic distinction between good and evil that the city desperately needs.
You either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. I can do those things, because I'm not a hero, not like Dent.
This complex interplay between Batman's heroism and his willingness to engage in morally questionable actions adds depth to his character, portraying him as a vigilante who, despite his noble intentions, becomes increasingly entangled in the very chaos he seeks to combat, thus blurring the lines between himself and the Joker.
To them, you're just a freak. Like me.
The psychological complexity of the Joker in Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight takes on a new dimension in Todd Phillips' movie, where the character is reimagined through a more humanized lens. Joaquin Phoenix's portrayal of the Joker, originally Arthur Fleck, offers a fresh exploration of the character's descent into madness, focusing on his transformation from a marginalized, mentally ill individual into a violent symbol of rebellion. Unlike the previous depictions of the Joker as a psychopathic mastermind, Phillips' film dives deep into Arthur's personal history of abuse and alienation. The new Joker is no longer driven purely by an inherent desire for chaos, but emerges from societal neglect and personal suffering. His turn to violence is portrayed as initially reactive, a self-defense mechanism against the cruel world. Over time, however, his acts evolve into a form of vengeance, targeting those he feels have wronged or oppressed him.
Hey, what's your name? Arthur. Hey, Arthur. You're a really good dancer. I know. No, who's not? Him.
This version of the Joker highlights the fragility of the human mind and the ease with which an ordinary individual can spiral into darkness when pushed to the brink by society. Arthur's gradual transformation from an outcast to a chaotic symbol of resistance reflects broader themes about mental illness, economic hardship, and the consequences of societal indifference.
The city has cut funding across the board. Social services is part of that. This is the last time we'll be meeting.
Okay.
They don't give a shit about people like you, Arthur.
By focusing on his origin, Philip reinterprets the Joker as the tragic figure whose actions, while horrific, are grounded in a more relatable and human context than the purely psychopathic villain portrayed in earlier adaptations.
Nothing can hurt me anymore. My life is nothing but a comedy.
Christopher Nolan's portrayal of the Joker as an extraordinary embodiment of evil, whose actions reveal the latent potential for darkness in every human being, is contrasted by Todd Phillips' version in Joker. He presents an abused and marginalized individual who eventually unleashes this inherent evil. Unlike the charismatic, supernatural-like villains often seen in DC and Marvel films, Arthur Fleck is a pitiful figure, not driven by power, but by victimization. In Joker, the traditional conflict between good and evil disappears, replaced by a darker, more realist narrative. Fleck's transformation into the Joker is a product of a violent and indifferent society, making him a character with whom people can sympathize.
Yeah, the whole fucking city's on fire because of what you did.
All units, fire reported north of Alley, code 4 for medical.
I know. Isn't it beautiful?
The movement that grows around his crimes stems from the public's ability to identify with his story, seeing themselves as victims of a broken system. The film doesn't dwell on Fleck's individual power or charisma, but emphasizes his ordinariness, making his plight and his eventual descent into violence relatable to the audience. This idea is expanded upon in Joker, Folie à Deux, where the film delves into the consequences of the crimes committed in the previous installment. Duality becomes a central theme, drawing on motifs from literature and art, such as the shadow as an unconscious aspect of personality, reminiscent of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde's dark duality, or the doppelganger theme seen in Edgar Allan Poe's tales, a sinister mirror image representing inner conflict.
She believes you have another person living inside of you, and it was this other person who committed those crimes.
The relationship between the self and his darker alter ego serves as the key theme in the movie, unfolding both through Arthur's internal struggle and reflections on his own actions, as well as through external dialogues about his upcoming trial. This duality reflects the interplay between personal accountability and societal perception, exploring how Arthur's consciousness grapples with his identity in relation to the Joker persona, which ultimately influences public narratives around him. The emergence of Harley Quinn as a lover and counterpart creates a contrast between Arthur Fleck's vulnerability and the powerful, Joker-inspired persona of Lee, symbolizing the dynamic of weakness and power.
Music! Let's take it from the top.
Is the honeymoon over?
Now an influential figure, notorious for violent crimes and public chaos, Arthur's lawyer attempts to prove his bipolar disorder in court as a defense, highlighting the divide between Arthur Fleck's troubled character and the Joker's public idealization.
Once in my life, I won't let sorrow hurt me.
In prison, Arthur's reflections show the struggle and the abuse of his past, further deepening the rift between his idolized status and his real identity. Lee's character, rather than a mere admirer caught up in Joker's madness, along with the massed supporters on Gotham streets, also serves as a doppelganger. Drawn to Joker's aura, she exploits Arthur's vulnerabilities, pushing him toward fully embodying the fear persona she admires.
It's just us now.
In the end, the trial nullifies both the glorification of the Joker persona and any attempt to dismiss it as simply a product of psychological disorder. Arthur's attempts to fully embody his anti-hero creation lead only to disillusionment, revealing him not as a true alter ego or symbol of vengeance, but as someone defined by the darker parts of his own psyche.
Who am I speaking to now? Which one of you is here? The poor, low IQ Arthur Fleck? Or the Joker who goaded a bunch of no-good punks?
Or do you really care? You don't.
This second film reverses the mythic aura surrounding the Joker in the first, stripping away the exceptionalism typical of DC and Marvel's grand villains and heroes. Rather than remaining an untouchable figure of rebellion through acts of horror, Arthur, by choosing to reject his villainous role, unravels the character's extraordinary status. This return to his initial, unremarkable origins highlights the ordinary, pitiful aspects of someone driven by revenge, pain, and neglect, humanizing him rather than glorifying the myth.
Knock. Knock. Who's there? Arthur Fleck. Arthur Fleck who?